Hi guys, this is the second video about car skinning and in particular how to replicate a real-life livery. Again, we will mainly use 3ds Max for this tutorial. I will show you how to use 3ds Max to work around the limitations of the model UV map that's used in-game using the reference map that we built in the first video. First, let me show you what I mean by limitations of the UV map, because it is a 3D model unwrapped on a plane. There are always limitations on what you can do. Either there will be warped faces like this one, or there will be cuts. So I'm just pointing here on the map, which is very good, areas where there is distortion, and for example here as well. And of course there are cuts between different parts of the bodywork, such as for example between the main bodywork and the doors. It is possible to totally work around that, and that's what I'm going to show you now. First step, let's set up a painting scene in 3ds Max. So with this Porsche model, which is not exactly the same as the original one that I displayed above, because as you can see the holes have been capped, and let me show you how they've been capped. I didn't create or deleted any faces in the original model. It's simply welded vertices that have been leveled, roughly leveled with the bodywork panels. That will be very useful for unwrapping the model, but it's not strictly necessary, and I will also show you how to work with the original model as well. So we just create a material with the texture map that we built, and let's display it on our model. And now we will unwrap specifically the painted faces. So we'll use an unwrap modifier, and we will use the channel 2. Channel 1 is the one used in game, so we'll use channel 2. Specifically, we'll put all faces of the same colors at the same place. So on top I will put the faces that will be carbon, and at the bottom the faces that are entirely blue, and the black faces at the right. So let's jump to the result. Here it is. So I freeze temporarily those faces because now we will unwrap specifically the parts that need some work in Photoshop or Illustrator. Example, we'll start with the banner on the windshield. I don't normalize the chunks, the UV chunks. You can do, because in the end of the process there will be an automatic normalization by 3ds Max, but I prefer to minimize this. So the idea is just to unwrap those faces that need some painting, just like for example this roof. Oh, and we will jump again to the result, otherwise this video will be very long and very boring. So here it is. Now we'll use the relax tool in 3ds Max. This is some sort of algorithm that reduces the distortion on your UV map, and this works best with a single chunk of UVs, which is why I first capped the holes within the bodywork. But let me show you how you do it when you left a hole. So for example here, you just make sure that you make a projection that is good. Usually it's along the average normals, and instead of relaxing the whole chunk, we will only relax the vertices that are not along the hole. Then this way the chunks, the relaxed chunks, will remain aligned. And one other thing is to group them to make sure that they will remain together when you with the last step, which is to pack the UVs in the render zone. I'm just using the packing algorithm, the packing tool with standard settings, which are quite good for that kind of work, because we will use that for painting. It's a good idea to improve it a little bit, to make it a little bit more painter friendly. And we put back on the render zone the chunks of UVs that are plain color. And now we are ready to go for the next step, which is to render the painted parts to the texture using the channel 2 UV map that we just did. So make sure to select channel 2. Also make sure to use a square dimensional texture. So here it is 4K times 4K, and use a a white background for the render to texture. You render it, and now we are ready to use it. I'm not going to show you the whole painting process in Illustrator, that would be much too long. If you're not familiar with Illustrator, there is a lot of online tutorials about it. So let's jump to the final repainting. Here it is. Now we just need to export it in a format that can be used in 3ds Max. As you can see, I've only painted half of the unwrapped parts because they are symmetrical. And so the right format for exporting is PNG with full transparency and in a big enough resolution. So again, here it's 4K times 4K. And we are ready for the next step in 3ds Max, which is to create a composite material. You can start with creating a standard new material with a white diffuse color, and the diffuse map is simply the base color of the skin. Here it is a Porsche white, so not full white. And you transform that new material into a composite one, keeping it as the base layer. And we will create a standard material with a black background, and you load as a diffuse map the paint PNG that we exported from Illustrator, and the map channel must match the one used in the unwrap modifier. And to achieve transparency, we just need to drag the map to the opacity slot and make sure that it uses the right alpha settings, so it is indeed fully transparent where it should be. So we assigned the new material to the car. Composite materials are not displayed in the viewport, but as you can see, it is quite good when rendered. Next step and final step for this first part is to finalize the UV map, which is simply to flip the UV chunks that are not painted and to put them on top of the other symmetrical half. So sometimes you need to adjust them, just like this one. It's simple enough, you just have to rotate it a little bit so both parts match. Again, I will jump to the final result, otherwise it will be a little bit too long and boring. Let's check what we've done with a quick render. And as you can see, now both sides of the car are properly painted. We just need to do now exactly the same with the decals, with the stickers. It's exactly the same process as for the painted parts. But this time, of course, we will use a different map channel. So we used channel 2 for the paint. We will use channel 3 for the decals. Most of the time you can unwrap the decal faces using symmetry, because usually they are at the same place on each side of the car. So just like that. And again, I'm just showing how to do it only for a few of the stickers, and then we jump to the result. Again, let's relax the unwrapped parts to minimize distortion. And again, we will pack them into the rendering zone using the Pack UVs tool with standard settings. And we print out the map with a render to texture. Same thing as before, except we're now using channel 3. Otherwise, exactly the same settings. And so in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever program you use, again, you can use it to repaint the decals in rather high resolution, and when you're done, you will be able to export them exactly in the same way as with the painted parts. So again, jumping to the results. Just before exporting. Again, same settings, PNG with full transparency, big square resolution, and now we add that to the composite material. The simplest way is simply to make a copy of the first material that we made and to adjust it. So now it's channel 3, and of course you load as the bitmap the decals PNG that we just made. Let's make a quick render. So this looks good, but we will make a few adjustments in the UV map to correct certain mistakes or inaccuracies. For example, here the Bilstein decal is not really well centered. You could fix that in Photoshop or Illustrator, but it's quicker simply to move a little bit the UV chunk just to correct that. And so you can adjust every decal that way in the UV map, and when you're done you render the skin to a texture, and this time you use the resolution that's used in game. So here it's 1.5 ratio, and you render to channel 1, which is the map channel used in game. So let's print it out. Final step, you integrate the map that you printed out from 3ds Max into the template. At least it's necessary for Assetto Corsa, because in the template there's the ambient occlusion map. And now your skin is done, and you can use it in game. Well, I hope this tutorial was useful to you, that you learned a few tricks along the way. This is a rather simple skin, so in a way the process that I've shown is something like killing a fly with a really big hammer, but this process will be very useful when the UV map is not good and has a lot of warping, or even if the game UV map is good, when you have to deal with a very complex livery, the process that I've shown will be definitely useful. So this is the end of the video. Thank you very much to Patrick Marek for letting me use this magnificent Porsche model. I will put in the video description a link to the mod used here, to Patrick Marek's Facebook modding page, and I will also upload that skin that we just made in this video to Race Department, so you can closely inspect the result and see how it comes out. Okay, so thank you for watching, and see you next time.